Hello.
Hello?
Can you hear me, Tanya?
Yes.
Okay, I think I'm set up now. This is Michelle Martineau.
Gotcha.
I'm having a connection issue today. So if I drop off, I will jump back on.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Husak, can you hear us now? Are you able to hear? Gail, I'm not sure. Maybe you want to call in? Use the phone number and call in if that works better. Okay, sounds good. All right. So I think we're going to go ahead and get started for this evening. Our agenda is up on the screen. If for some reason you can't see something, please let me know. I'm trying something different as far as sharing the screen this evening. During the presentation, if you can, just like last time, stay muted until you have something to say so that we don't get any feedback or anything from anyone else's computer. Whoever's talking, if they can just stay unmuted and everyone else stay muted until we have conversation, that would be perfect. This is also being streamed on YouTube and will be recorded and can be watched at a later time as well. So jumping into the agenda, the first item that we have on there this evening is flexible instruction days. This is something that Pennsylvania Department of Education put out for the first time in the 1920 school year. It was a possibility of us to apply to have days that if we had snow days, we could have instruction from home and use those as potential makeup days rather than having to add additional days on at the end of the school year or use any of our already predetermined days within the calendar and use those as makeup days. In the 1920 school year, because of the timing that it came out and the conversation that the superintendents in our IU had in Carbon and Lehigh County, the decision was made not to do that for this year. So for 1920, we did not use any of the flexible instruction days, nor did we apply for them. Moving into the 2021 school year and having been through the COVID-19 shutdown and having our educators instructing in an online environment and seeing that we can do this, we're starting to reconsider that. So we're looking at 1920. So the application right now is out. If we wanted to apply for days for 1920, which we don't need, the governor has forgiven the 180-day requirement and the 900 hours for elementaries, 990 for the high school or for the secondary schools. So we do not have to meet those requirements this year. However, the application is open for now. If we want to apply, we can do that for the next few months. And then if we were to receive that approval, it would carry over for the next 2 years. At this point, we don't see a need to do that for 1920. The only thing that we can see is it would carry over for the next 2 years and we'd be all set already. But the new application for 2021 opens this fall, and I believe that the date that it's going to be due is September 1st. So we are looking at applying for those flexible instruction days for the 2021 school year. in the event that, something comes up that's unexpected, or we have, more than our share of snow days or something like that. When we do apply, it would be September 1st, I believe, is the deadline. The Pennsylvania Department of Education would let us know by November 1st if we're approved for those, or if we have to make any edits or changes. And then that again would carry us for 2 years. So it would include the next 2 school years. So that's what we're looking at doing with the flexible instruction days. But we do feel at this point, having been through this experience, that we can pull that off if needed. And again, that would only be if we absolutely need to use those in some sort of emergency situation.
So Tanya, those would not be used as snow days. So we would keep our 2021 current calendar that we have created to have those snow days. And then would we look to change that in the future, or are you looking to, just because that schedule's already created?
So yeah, so I think right now, based upon the schedule that we already have, that's been created, we'd be looking to move forward with that. If that ended up, we had a massive snowstorm that went beyond the amount of days that we had planned, or we end up starting to add a lot more days on at the end, that's something that we would bring to the board for consideration at that point. And then moving forward, knowing that we would have these days, and we've already applied for 2 years for them to be included, then moving into the following year calendar for the 21-22 school year, that's a conversation that when the calendar is being developed, that the board can have with administration about what we want to do with those days.
Thank you. The last question I do have about that is, would any policy need to be updated if we go through with the flexible instructional days?
It may. We've been going through all the policies now based upon the COVID-19 shutdown. So we're finding out from PDE and from PSBA which policies need to be updated that are currently not aligning to the decisions that have been made in the shutdown. So we are updating those policies as we go. We can certainly go back and look at, if we're looking at doing flexible instruction days, if that's going to impact any of those policies too. And PSBA may have recommendations out there. I didn't see anything regarding that and how flexible instruction days alter that, but we can certainly go back and look.
Dr.
Thank you.
Stoker, this is Michelle Martineau here. Speaking of those policies, do we have to update any policies going forward for the use of the Khajiits, or do they all fall under the tech policies we already have in place?
I don't know, Eric, can you answer that?
Yes. So far, no. All of our policies that we already have cover anything that we have with the Khajiits as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else on the flexible instruction days? Okay, so that, like I said, is something that we'd be looking to apply for the 2021 school year, application deadline of September 1st, and that we would be applying for that for a 2-year period, and that we'll make considerations with our calendar afterwards. Our next item on the agenda is 1920 graduation resolution. So if you look at the agenda, we have the resolution, and then underneath we have policy 217. We have our 1920 program of study graduation requirements sheet for the high school, and then the Bulldog Academy graduation requirements. We're not looking to redo any of those 3 that are kind of the sub items there. That's just for reference. So we went through our policies, and the graduation policy, in order for students to graduate this year, we need to make some adjustments there. So this is a resolution to that effect. So I'll click on that.
This is Gary. I'm on now.
Hi, Gary. How are you?
I'm better now that I can talk to somebody. I don't know what's wrong. I couldn't get in. I apologize. So just continue. I'm sorry.
No problem. Thank you for coming. So we're looking at the graduation resolution, and I'm just going to go through each of these paragraphs and kind of explain the purpose of this. So this is a resolution for us to graduate students at the end of this school year who may not have all of the typical graduation requirements met. So we have students that are, going through LCTI, for example, and they have to have so many hours for their particular certifications or concentration areas, and some of those things have been forgiven. We're doing pass-fail for the fourth quarter and in our own buildings. There's a lot of changes that have happened. So we're just trying to make sure that our policy is in fitting with what's acceptable through PDE and through PSBA for graduation for students that are the class of 2020. So this resolution, the first part says, whereas the closures of all schools in response to the COVID-19 pandemic of 2020 has rendered the district unable to complete high school testing mandated by the Commonwealth and federal governments and to deliver fully standards-aligned instructions for the remainder of the 1920 school term. So some of the guidance we know that was handed down from PDE is that we're not doing keystone testing. That is not currently a requirement, and some districts do have that in policy that regardless of whether or not it counted for students that they had to take that. We do not have that in policy until the class that are current sophomores. That's when that goes back into effect again. But there are some other things like we discussed within our graduation policies that we're not necessarily going to meet this year. So that's what this purpose is. The next one would be that the Northern Lehigh School District has established local standards for graduation that the district can either not or cannot feasibly implement to enable the current class of 2020 to graduate in the manner and with the time anticipated. The next one says, without waiver of certain graduation requirements established by the district, the class of 2020 will suffer an irreparable loss for reasons beyond the control of the district or these students to alter. Now, therefore, the Board of School Directors hereby suspends the requirements it has established for graduation from high school for the 1920 school year and establishes the following in place thereof. Students will be credited with all coursework, including partial coursework, completed successfully prior to the March 13th, 2020, that was our shutdown date, and such credit shall be deemed sufficient to earn a district-issued high school diploma by the end of June of 2020. For seniors who have failed or were failing senior courses prior to March 13th, the superintendent shall establish opportunities for credit recovery or demonstration of proficiency with course content through the continuity of education plan that the district has developed, which is published on our website. And then nothing in this resolution shall affect the rights of students with disabilities to graduate based on the plans established in their IEPs. Nothing in this resolution shall affect graduation requirements of the district for any year other than this year. So this resolution is just to be brought to the school board for approval this May at our board meeting. And essentially, as the governor and State Secretary Rivera has said, students who were on course to graduate should be graduating. We should not be holding students back from whatever their post-secondary plans were because of the shutdown. That should not impact students. So essentially, this is something that was recommended by them, and just to protect us so that we are moving forward with graduating students. But if there's something that they didn't meet, we're covered for this year. Any questions on that?
Tanya, I do have a quick question. I'm sorry. For the seniors in the section where it says if they were failing, is the high school also doing a pass-fail for this last quarter? Kind of like I'm not sure if all the schools where I only have a little guys in a couple of them, so.
Sure. So for the fourth quarter, yes, all of our buildings are doing a pass-fail. That includes Bulldog and that includes LCTI. So every student that we have will be getting a pass-fail for the fourth quarter. That'll be reflected on the report cards. Then when we get into the final grade, we are working on our plan to incorporate all of those grades, whether it be from the beginning of the year through the end of the year for somebody that had a course for the whole year, or if it's just a quarter course, or at the high school, since we're on block scheduling, if it's just third and fourth quarter. We're developing our plan and we'll publish that soon. We just wanted to get everything out for the third quarter, start moving into the fourth quarter. But as we move into it towards the end of May, we're going to talk about what those grades will look like averaged out and what kind of grades students will be getting. I can tell you the administration has met and talked about that and is doing everything in our power to make sure that we're giving students every opportunity to pass classes. So we don't want to see any student who is doing well, up to the shutdown, who now is failing a quarter. We're asking teachers to give good feedback. We're asking our building administrators to make sure that anybody who needs packets, we get the packets out if they still don't have connectivity. So we're trying to do everything in our power to make sure we don't have students in a position, where they're failing because of the shutdown.
Thank you.
Dr. Stoker,
Yep.
Michelle Martineau here. I have a question regarding this resolution and what you just said and how it impacts class rank. I know a lot of schools are no longer even reporting class rank. Is it possible that for this year, just to ensure fairness for the students who thought they'd be able to jump up in the last marking period or whatever, just to ensure that nobody is being shortchanged, that maybe the resolution can include we don't report to the colleges this year? Is that something that's feasible, or what does that look like to
Don't
you?
report class rank, or?
Yeah, class rank.
I think that we may still want to report class rank just because that's something sometimes, and maybe Bob can speak to this, that the high school, it's for scholarships. So sometimes we have to say that they're in the top 5% or top 10% in order for them to qualify for certain scholarships. I can
Okay.
tell you that David and Bob and Allison and Raquel, our two school counselors, and I sat down and had a pretty in-depth conversation a couple weeks ago about class rank and grading and what's this going to look like for the high school. So we did look at currently where the students are, our top so many students for class rank. We did go through a variety of scenarios of how we could potentially grade for the fourth quarter when we were talking about that pass-fail. What we're able to do in Power School, our student management system with grades, and really went through a lot of different scenarios. And I know the high school hand calculated all of those to see that it would not impact students, severely. That somebody who was scheduled in kind of ahead of people to be our valedictorian didn't get dropped to fifth or anything like that, or a student didn't come, from maybe 12th and jump up to salutatorian or something like that. I think this year is pretty unique in that when we did calculate the GPAs to date, which is something that we currently do at this time of year anyway, just to see where everybody falls before moving into the end of the year, we have kind of a significant difference between some of the students that are in that top couple students. So we looked at what we can do with our grades, and based upon that, we felt that this was the most fair system that we could initiate. So I think we're going to be okay with that class rank at the high school. I don't know, Bob or David, if there's anything you'd like to add with that.
No, I would just say I agree with you, Dr. Stoker. We did have a very in-depth conversation, and the way we're doing pass-fail, it would not change the rank of those students. So especially you're looking in the top, especially I'm looking at the top three, and everything kind of fell in line. The good thing about this is that it definitely does not hurt any student. So doing it this way, it benefits. It really does benefit everyone. It does. I'm even looking at the lower end that aren't doing very well. It gives them an opportunity to pass their courses if they weren't doing a stellar job before. So it is definitely set up to help all. And it definitely, I just want to give a shout out to the teachers and my counselors who've done an outstanding job with reaching out to students and parents and really going above and beyond.
Okay, that's great. And just to tack on to what you said, Bob, I also heard today one of my friends, their schools just got started today with online learning because they were so unprepared, and much bigger schools with much bigger pockets. And I was just so proud of us, all of you, and the job that you've done and how we've handled this the situation. It's just been impressive. So I appreciate everybody's work.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So without hearing any more questions on this, are we okay to move this to the school board meeting in May for a vote?
It's good with
Yes.
me, Michelle Martineau.
Okay.
Paul Heckman too.
This is Gary. Besides Gail, is anybody else on board wise?
Yes, we have a
Yes.
couple board members on.
Michelle Martineau and Michelle Heckman are on.
Okay, maybe it'll be easier. Is anybody opposed to this? If not, I'd say go ahead with it.
There was nobody opposed, Gary.
Then go with it.
Okay, thank you very
Yep.
much. So we will see that on the agenda in May for a vote for that resolution. Thank you. The next thing in our agenda is our Chromebook and laptop plan. So we have devices currently that have been given out to students, through our normal one-to-one program. So the high school students had laptops, our middle school students had Chromebooks. And then we also have some that have been given out to students, obviously because of the shutdown, so that they can participate in our continuity of education plan. So we need to get those devices back at some point. So we have a plan that we're looking at for the summer, and then we're really not sure what the fall is going to bring yet. We hope that we're back in our schools, at the beginning of the first day of school for students and for teachers, and that everyone's back, but we don't know what that's going to look like yet. So we're starting to also look at a plan for the fall. So at this point, I'm going to turn this over to Eric to talk about our Chromebook and laptop plan moving forward.
Okay, yes, the button kept doing that where it just kept going down, when you go to click it. I don't know why that happens sometimes. But anyway, yes, the Chromebooks. What we were planning on doing, first of all, let's talk about seniors. What we definitely need to collect the laptops from the seniors. So what I will be doing with that is we just discussed this with Mr. Velocity in our last building administrative team meeting. What we will do is we will coordinate the collection of laptops with Mr. Velocity at the high school because the seniors still need to come in and get things out of their lockers. So what we will do is set up a collection time when they also come in to get all the valuables that are still left in the lockers. So we will coordinate that with the building administrator. As far as the remaining students that have the devices, as of now, we are planning on collecting them for the summer. And again, we will coordinate that with all the building principals. But we are leaving the opportunity there if we get guidance from the state indicating that we may not come back in the fall. We are contemplating possibly leaving the students keep them over the summer. We will only do that if it is likely, let's say it's likely that we are not coming back in the fall. At this point, there's no indication of that. But again, I think at this point, the best thing to do is to let's hold off just a little longer towards the end of May and see if we have any guidance from the state. So that is our summer plan. And
Mr.
as far,
Hill,
yes, go ahead.
this is Michelle Martineau again. I also wanted just to keep it in the back of your head that I haven't heard anything. Maybe Shelley can speak to this. I haven't heard anything about the ESY program over the summer. But if those kids are all going to need to keep or retain, instead of adding a step by turning it in and coming back to the school to get another laptop or Chromebook.
Yeah. I agree. I think what we want to do at this point is we want to, I don't think we want to be strict on getting them back right away if we don't have to be. And I think we need to have a little flexibility this summer. Plus, with the social distancing, the least amount of contact, the better as well. So there is a potential that we may leave the kids have them over the summer. Do you have anything to add, Mrs. Dada?
No, we're going to have to work together and see. Obviously, my students are most likely going virtual, so they'll need access to that equipment.
Okay. Yeah, we will work that out, and if students need access, we'll certainly give them access. That's our plan for the summer.
Okay,
So I did
thank you.
see
I
some-
just wanted to make sure, that little tick was checked.
Yep. Thank you.
So I did see some questions pop up in the chat. We will be holding ESY, and like Mrs. Dada said, that's probably something we're going to be doing virtually, but it will be held this summer. Okay, so that's the summer plan. Moving into the fall of 2020, we talked a little bit about, if we're taking devices back or how we're going to be giving devices back out. But in the fall of 2020, we may be extending our one-to-one program. Right now, we have our students that are in 7th and 8th grade with the Chromebooks and our students that are in 9th through 12 with the laptops. But we're finding through this experience that some of our students in Slatington and some of our teachers in Slatington are liking the students having Chromebooks at home at that upper end. So we are potentially looking at some of the upper grades in Slatington participating in that one-to-one Chromebook initiative as well. We don't know the full extent of that at this point. We're trying to see what that would look like in the budget. I don't know if Eric or Scott would like to add to that.
Yeah, I'll just add something quickly. What we're looking to do is start out with a one-to-one model in Slatington Elementary 6th grade. And when I say that, we already kind of have a one-to-one there. It's just that the students don't take the Chromebooks home. So what we would do is extend the one-to-one out to the 6th grade where they could take them home. It's something they may not take home all the time, but they would have the ability to take them home. And then we'd also talked about possibly pushing that down into 5th grade as well, maybe a little later in the year. As far as budget-wise, we did not have that planned in the budget, but we did have, we'll be discussing budget, of course, later this week, but in the initial budget that I have, we should have a little extra money left over from the projectors and Chromebooks that we were looking to purchase at Peters, assuming that prices go up from now until summertime. And we should have a little extra money in there where we could purchase the cases. That was my only concern. We don't have cases for those. So we should have a little extra money in there. We should be able to get the cases for those Chromebooks. So if Mr. Pine wants to speak to that as well, now would be a good time.
So the only thing I would say is that sort of like the flexible instruction days is the type of thing that we talked about, and I don't know that we necessarily were ready to jump right in, but we got thrown in the pool, and it turns out we think we can swim, and we think it might be really helpful for our kids. Yeah, 6th grade was definitely at the forefront of the conversation, but if 5th grade's possible, I know those teachers are also interested in seeing what we can do with it.
Okay. All right, any questions on Chromebook and laptops kind of at our upper end for our seniors, moving down through potentially into Slatington?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. All right, then we'll move down into our policy part of the agenda for this evening. We have 3 policies that are on for this evening. We have class rank, federal fiscal compliance, and facilities and workplace safety. Class rank is something that came up by happenstance. So we know that PDE has been saying, look at your policies, make sure that they're up to date, make sure it reflects what's happening in your district, especially under COVID-19, if there's anything that you need to change. And PSBA is giving us recommendations as well. One of the policies that they told us to look at is grading. So when we went and we looked at grading, we don't have a very specific grading policy. We have a very general policy regarding grading. But then when we looked at our class rank policy that kind of came up as part of that, our class rank policy was pretty antiquated. And I'll click on that now. It references back to 1999, 2000, 2001. So it's pretty old.
Hey, what are you saying there, Tony?
And I was long before that as a graduate. So, but as far as a policy goes, it was a little old for us. So this was actually last revised in 1998, and it was adopted the year before. So my guess is this is when the standards had changed. So we went from the legacy standards to our new standards right around, into the legacy standard right around 1999. So I'm guessing that some of this changed as a result of everybody looking at their grading, their class rank, what courses were being offered, were they aligned to the new standards, things of that nature. But going through it, it's pretty old. Now we've been having conversations at Curriculum Council, and at Curriculum Council, we're talking about, what we want to do at the high school level with class rank, what we're looking at doing with maybe our schedule. We want to get some things in there to support students better. So this policy may end up changing, maybe even by next year, or if not, certainly the year after. But we thought it was important to update our class rank policy to be matching with what we're doing currently, so that when we do start to look at those changes, it makes sense and it's easier to change than to kind of redraft it. So we did go through and we cut out everything from 1999. There's some examples in there of what grading might look like for the 98-99 school year, or 89 or 98-99 school year, and then grade point average. So this is currently what we have. This is our current numerical scale. This is our current 4-point equivalent scale that converts to. And then essentially what we have in here is that the GPA is computed at the end of each quarter, and a cumulative GPA at the end of each semester. That's at our high school because of the block. And that students can range from anywhere from 0 to a 4-point scale. Then beyond that, for each individual student, we look at whether or not they took any AP or honors level courses. And if they do, they get an additional quality point. So the way that impacts is if a student had a 4.0 for that semester, let's say they had a 93 to 100, then they get a 4.0, but then if that was an AP or an honors level course, that bumps up to a 5.0. Further down, you can see some examples of what that looks like. So there's a GPA example number 1 and 2, and you can see what courses count, what courses got an additional weighting. Now, our dual enrollment courses that are not taught by teachers at Northern Lehigh do not count towards our class rank. So we did put that note in there as well. Bob, do you have anything that you'd like to add, or David, for the class rank policy?
And only that we've been doing ever since I was here, which is about 9 years ago. And I know that it had actually changed. It was a little bit different than what we just saw, the old policy. I do know that the GPAs were outlandish. I mean, there were GPAs like 7.43, and that's where this I understand came about. I believe it came about through my predecessor, Mrs. Yadish, and in fine tuning this to make it more realistic, with 5.0 being the very highest you can get. So this is more realistic, and it's been working very well for the last 9 years.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions on this policy? Again, it's not something that we're updating for any other purpose other than to make it align currently with what we're doing in the building, knowing that potential updates may be coming, from discussions at Curriculum Council moving forward. Hearing no questions, do we have the board's go ahead to move this to the board meeting in May for a first reading?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yep.
Gary, you good?
I'm good.
Tanya, board is good to move it forward.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll put that on the agenda for May for a vote for a first reading. The next policy we have this evening, if I can click off of it, is federal fiscal compliance. So we have some faculty members in our district that are paid through federal funds. We have Title I teachers in our building. So in our elementary centers, everyone's considered a Title I employee because we're school-wide. But we do have some specific people who give interventions, and prior to going school-wide were our targeted assistant people, and did get paid part of their salary or benefits from federal programs, from Title I, from Title II. Title III, which is our ESL, or our English Language Development Program, that also falls under title monies. We currently don't pay any salaries out of that because we don't get a whole lot of money, but we do use that to purchase different items. Our Title IV monies we use for a variety of different purposes, including paying our SPO. So we do have some employees in our district who do receive salary and benefits from our title programs. So we had to update this because in order to continue to pay them during the shutdown, we had to make sure that our policy was aligned, and that came from PDE through their federal programs, and also the guidance we got through PSBA. So we had to update the policy. We have to keep a schedule for those employees so that we know that they're working essentially a full day, they're working their normal hours during the shutdown, and what they're doing during that time. So for our teachers, we needed to make sure that they were still engaged with the students during that time. For our SPO, we needed to make sure that he was still, coming to work and providing safety and security for our campuses and things of that nature. So that's what this is why this policy was updated. So if I scroll down, on the second page, you'll see internal controls, effective control and accountability, including segregation of duties, must be maintained for all funds, real and personal property and assets. So we have to not just keep a general kind of tally of everything, but we need to keep things separated, including what their duties are, including what their time frames are for the employees that we have working. On the equipment side of things, we have a non-pub in our district, a Catholic school that shares in some of these funds because some of our monies do go to that Catholic school for students who are residents of the district but don't attend our school. So if we give them some sort of equipment through one of the grants, we have to also tally that and keep track that equipment still exists, and we have to register that every year as well. So when our auditors come, these are some of the questions that they look at. Further down, the district shall establish and maintain employee policies and procedures on hiring, benefits, and leave and outside activities as approved by the board. District procedures on payment of staff shall apply to employees paid with federal funds and shall include payment in extenuating or emergency conditions in accordance with applicable law, regulations, or emergency declarations by state and federal authorities. So essentially, this is just, we had to put this statement in. It's coming from PSBA directly, the language, but it's because PDE is telling us through federal programs that we have to update our policy to say that they can still be paid during emergency circumstances. And then that's really it for that policy. Those are the two pieces that were updated. Any questions on that?
Michelle, Gary, anybody? Questions on anything?
Michelle Martineau, I'm good.
Good to move it forward?
Yes.
Tanya, we're good to move that one forward also.
Okay, thank you very much. That'll be on the board agenda for May for first reading as well. Our last one for this evening is facilities and workplace safety. So we updated a related policy regarding this too in December, I believe it was, of this past year. This policy could have been updated at that time as well, but we held off because we knew that through our PCCD grant and Safe Schools grants, that we had gotten some safety and security upgrades that we wanted to have included. So we know that when we're coming into our school buildings, we're coming into the buildings, we have a fob system for any of our employees, but we're also including a Raptor system. So we're going to have a visitor identification system. It's been ordered, it's been put in. We have staff that was trained from our front offices actually on that March 13th in-service day, and our soft rollout essentially was supposed to come right after that through the rest of the year. So we were going to start to scan IDs and things of that nature against the Megan's Law database and things that we have in that system. However, we shut down and we were not back to school that Monday. So we did get our staff trained, but we didn't do the soft rollout. But that information is included in this policy. And then also the fob update is in here. And then there's some other things regarding workplace safety, and that's for the equipment that we must have, for working the buildings during this emergency situation. So if we look at purpose, the board recognizes that the district facilities must be maintained and operated in a condition that prioritizes the safety of students, staff, and visitors. The board directs the district to provide facilities and equipment deemed necessary for the safe conduct of educational programs and operations of the school, including the provision of protective devices where needed for safety purposes. So this is, if we're going to have people that are working during the shutdown, they need to have gloves, they need to have safety masks, they need to be wearing those, maintaining social distance, those types of things. The superintendent or designee shall annually review and evaluate district safety rules and plans. Administrators shall ensure that all staff and students are informed of safety rules at the beginning of the school year. And then it talks about our visitors. So previously they would come in, they would sign in. It doesn't mean that we're not going to have them sign in anymore, but they're going to be screened through our visitor management system. So we're going to make sure that we take their IDs and we're going to screen them coming in. And that'll happen in the main office areas or in the district office right at that main area that Tina sits at. So we've updated the policy to include that. And then you'll see that they recommend swipe cards, but we don't actually have swipe cards. So our recommendation for that was key fobs because that's what we use for our buildings. And then moving further down, a workplace safety committee shall be established to promote the district schools concerning safe schools. So we do have a couple of committees that do meet. Greg Durr does have a committee that he has with regard to safety within the buildings. How do we dispose of chemicals and how do we make sure that we keep the buildings clean and that sort of thing. But we also have a safe schools committee, which is more about our multi-hazard plan and keeping students safe with respect to that. We do have some committees that meet for those purposes. So those are the updates that we have for that policy. And again, in light of being shut down, some of these things had to be added to this policy, but while we were updating it, we decided to add in some of the other pieces related to some of the new security equipment that we're going to have. Any questions on this, and do we have the ability to move this one to the board for a vote?
This is Gary. I think you did a great job here. I really think you did an excellent job.
Thank you, Gary.
Michelle Martineau here. I'm good to go with it.
Thanks, Michelle.
Same, Michelle Heckman, I'm good.
Okay.
Dr. Stoker, we're good to move that one also. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. So those are the policies for this evening. Does anybody have anything else for further discussion for ed policy for this evening?
This is Gary. I don't have anything for discussion. I don't know, since I could not get on in the beginning, I don't know if anybody made this comment, but I'm going to do it. After hearing about Matt's father, I asked Sharon to send flowers to him and his family on behalf of the board and the school district. So that has been taken care of. I just wanted everyone to know that.
Thank you, Gary.
Tanya, I do have a question, and it's unfortunately not on the agenda, but I just have a general question, I guess. For the grades using PowerSchool right now, are those all being updated across all school buildings?
So we had a discussion about this on Friday because it's a little bit different than how we normally grade. So not all of the buildings use the PowerSchool from the front facing to the parents. But we had a discussion because how do we go from a number grade to a pass-fail grade? And in that interim period where we had kind of the activities and resources that we were handing out, as we transitioned in some buildings, we're saying whether or not students have turned assignments in or not turned assignments in, and then teachers are kind of keeping that information separately in a grade book. So maybe if each of the principals want to talk a little bit about that and give some clarity on what that looks like for the parent side of things, through Power School. Do we want to start maybe at James, because that might be the easiest part to start?
Yes, mine will be quite easy. As per past practice, Peters Elementary School does not open up the grade book to the parents. So as we sit there, we've been communicating, and there's actually been some challenges with that, but we've been basically doing more direct communication through the teachers regarding keeping them updated about expectations, etc. But again, as of now, there are no updates for how parents can see grades at Peters.
So for Slatington, the teachers have been entering ones or zeros, basically. Since we've been talking about pass-fail, students have completed the assignments and, perhaps pushing back and asking them to redo if they didn't complete them with any earnest. But basically, they've been earning a 1 or a 0. So it may be showing up as a, quote, grade, but that was kind of our best way of looking at it and reporting back to parents that this is what's getting done and what's not getting done.
Okay, sorry, I couldn't get my microphone to turn on. And I know for the middle school, they're doing a check if it's done. They're doing missing. There's little squares that should be on there for missing assignments, so that it's a pass-fail, whether it's done or not complete. They're not, and they're also not always putting it in as soon as the Google Classroom says it was submitted. That does not mean that it's graded or checked off at that time, because it's still just like a normal day or an assignment where it may take 24, 48 hours, even more to grade, because the teachers are still looking at 90, so many students in a day or assignments in a day to get work through and to go through the Google Classroom and move the idea that it's submitted to a grade, so to speak, but it's the pass fail.
At the high school, we have teachers posting assignments Sunday night into Monday morning, beginning of every week. We're using the two primary platforms. We have Canvas and Google Classroom. They've all been instructed that if students are not completing work, or some of the work that's come in needs some revision, needs some improvement, they are to reach out at the midpoint and then also reach out again at the end of the week. And end of the week, they submit regular attendance reports for myself, Bob, and Jill to review. We've also encouraged them to use Power School as a way to document the assignments, very much like Jill was describing, to use the check mark or the collected feature with some comments in there. That way, parents have a couple different opportunities to see what their kids are doing, whether it be logging into Power School and seeing the series of collected or missing assignments, looking at the student's Canvas or Google Classroom as well, and then also direct communication, whether it be email or phone call or some other correspondence.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Stoker. It made it helpful listening to everybody explain how it was being done, because when you have, like for myself, I have students in 2 different buildings, and seeing it in 2 different ways and not really understanding why or how, it was a little confusing, that it wasn't all the same when we're looking at it. So you kind of have to dig a little bit further in. So thank you for the explanation on that.
Sure, good question. Anyone else have anything for ed policy for this evening? Okay, hearing nothing, we're going to make a transition at this point to our next agenda for the extra and co-curricular meeting. So Eric, are you going to share your screen and I'll go ahead and take notes? And
yes,
then
I'll go ahead and share my screen.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Stoker, another quick question, I'm sorry, before, and I apologize, Mr. Hill. Has there been any determination on graduation?
We sent out a survey from the high school and are eliciting feedback on the timing of graduation and also the location, if it's going to be a virtual type of thing, if it's going to be students driving through in their cars, or if it's going to be an in-person maybe later on in the summer. Bob, do you want to talk a little bit about that survey that went out?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Yes, we sent a survey out to the staff, the parents, and most importantly to the students to weigh in on different options that might be available. Knowing that we might not have control over the situation, we're going to be regulated to what we can and cannot do. But it went everything from a totally virtual ceremony with mailing home diplomas to traditional later on in the summer. Right now, the results that we got back, everybody across the board prefers a traditional graduation. We don't know if that's going to be possible or not, but that's something that's an option. And then the other options that were most popular was a kind of a combo virtual traditional at maybe a drive-in theater or whatnot, understanding that we're still regulated by social distancing and large group gatherings. The third option that was most popular was a parade type option where students would drive through town, parade style, maintaining social distancing, people maintaining social distancing out on the sidewalk in front of their houses or whatnot, ending up at on the high school campus for a diploma distribution. Those were our top three. Number four was actually there were some people that thought that safety was most important and we should mail them home. But I don't believe, unless we're dictated that, I don't believe that's going to necessarily happen unless we're forced to. I think everybody is really reaching. I've had a lot of contact with local people in the community, looking to do all kinds of things. We have a couple really nice things that are planned out for our seniors right now. And I can't disclose that because that's kind of a surprise. But the community has really rallied against the class. I mean, not against, rallied for the class of 2020. And I firmly believe that we're going to have a well-deserving ceremony for our seniors.
And we got another one today, Bob, as well. I have an email to share with you at another point of some other things that the community is looking to do.
All right, sounds good. We can never have too much.
And I
Can you
promise,
guys,
Dr. Stoker, last question.
Sure.
The last day of school, has that been identified yet?
Right now it's June 5th.
Okay.
So as per our calendar and, not having to make up those 180 days, any of these days that we're not officially there, right now it would stand as it is on the calendar. I believe it's June 5th.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Can you guys, this is Michelle Martineau. Can you guys make sure to keep us in the loop for any of these, things we can do as a board to honor our seniors as well? I'm sure all of us would be happy to participate in the safest way possible, but make sure that we let them know that we care about them and we're thinking about them and we honor their achievement.
Absolutely. We'll continue to share things out, as they develop through the board updates that Matt sends every week. And then, as we get to plan events and as they shape up, we'll certainly make sure that you're aware as a board.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. At this time, we'll go ahead and transition. Mr. Hill's got the agenda up for this evening's extra and co-curricular committee. And Mr. Geist, I'm going to hand it over to you for the first one. We're talking about spotlighting seniors and, not just educationally through graduation, but some of our other activities that they're involved in. So perfect transition time.
All right. Thank you, Tanya. Thank you, everybody. Eric, if you don't mind, I'd like to just share my screen just to I know all our board members have had a chance to see what we've spotlighted with our seniors. And as soon as I can pull this up here.
Yep.
You got it? All right.
I stopped sharing, so you can go ahead and take over.
All right. Thank you. As you can see, I pull up, this is our athletics website, and you see some of these happen to be our softball seniors. And we also have our baseball seniors on the baseball page and the track on the track page. And I'm just going to go to the home page, and they scroll through on the front page as well. We felt that this was the least that we could do in regards to honoring our seniors. Their season ended 2 weeks into the spring season, and I had the coaches reach out and get some biographies, and we wanted to do almost like a super senior night, but throughout the entire spring season, honoring all these athletes and what was stolen from them. So I'll entertain any questions at this point.
Hi, this is Michelle Martineau. I had a question actually related to the juniors. What's happening regarding any scouting for these kids?
Nothing. And there was, in all the articles that I've gotten through all my journals, there was only one article in regards to juniors. The rest has been senior oriented. Junior year is normally a time when our athletes and all junior athletes are looked at. There's going to be other different ways that colleges are going to try to reach out. And in regards to softball, some of these college scouts may end up going to see them play fall ball, or if there is any summer ball. I know Little League has been canceled for the entire summer, which is kind of a shame. But with schedules and everything, that's kind of where we're at here. But there is really no talk or discussion in regards to juniors and in that aspect.
Thank you. That's a shame. I was worrying about them.
Anyone else have any other questions in regards to the senior spotlights? All right, thank you. Moving on, lightning detection, kind of gave you an update on that. This is kind of a little sneak peek at our new website. I know some of you have seen this. Andy Kern, I sent him the information. He was able to get this information up here. And the unit that you see on top of the press box, that is from Earth Networks. And that is going to be our siren and strobe warning system. The alert sound is not as obnoxious as you think it might be. When there is lightning within 10-mile radius, there is going to be one long 15-second horn blast. And that, again, it's not as obnoxious as you think it is, but what it's going to do is give us some great information in regards to any lightning that is sneaking up on us, especially having the mountain to our north and all the trees to our west. When you're on the field, it is very difficult to see any approaching storms from the west. So this is going to be a great tool for us in regards to keeping all of our fans, our players, coaches, and officials safe. The nice thing, what comes along with this is you can see on the bottom here is a lightning detection widget, and our athletic trainers have always followed this as a NFHS rule. The timer located underneath where you see no alert or connection is up. Below that, you'll see estimated time to clear is 30 minutes. That's the standard for NFHS, PIAA, and the Colonial League. Anytime there's a lightning strike that's within 10 miles, that timer resets. So if it gets to 25 and there's another lightning strike, it resets at 30. During that time, the strobe light will maintain. And finally, when the storms move away, There'll be 3 5-second short blasts giving us the all clear that it'll be safe to return for play. So at this point, I'll entertain any questions.
Brian, I'd just like to add that, just for the public's knowledge, that this was funded through our PCCD grant. So the competitive grant that we got for 1920, this was fully funded for 2 years through that grant, plus what it cost us to purchase the equipment.
Yes.
So that's something that we don't have to pay for the next 2 years. And then after that, it would come out of our athletic budget, be built into that.
Yep, that is correct. Thank you for sharing that, Tanya. Any questions? Okay, the next thing, and I'm going to let Eric pull the agenda back up, and is the NFHS Pixelot system. All I can say is that the work is on that. We've received the hardware. Eric and the IT crew with Stephen Hawes they're currently on the installation process. Greg Durr's crew, including Chris Mann, has started they've, I believe, completed most of the wiring and the conduits for the gym and the stadium. So we're hoping that we're going to have that up and operational probably within the next 10 days. But I will let Eric talk about that, or Stephen Hawes talk about that if there is a delay on that. But I think 10 days we should be up and running on that. At least we can do some testing on that. Is that correct, Eric, Steve?
Yes, yeah, we're waiting for some of the wiring to get finished, but yeah, we're moving along in that project, so it should be just as you said, should be finished within the next week or two.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions about the NFH Pixelot? And again, that is being funded by St. Luke's, our partners in athletic training.
Hi, Brian. It's
Hi.
Gail. I just wanted to say thank you guys for going through some of these things. We're making a lot of really great changes to allow our community to continue to watch our athletes, as well as watch other activities that happen at our district, as well as then keeping our district and our community and students and athletes safe during those competitions. So kudos to you guys for continuing to look for ways to do that and to continue to make Bulldog Stadium and the Northern Lehigh school building safe and secure for everybody coming. So thank you for your hard work.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And also kudos to Eric and Stephen and the IT, as well as Greg Durr and the maintenance staff, and also Tanya for writing the grant and able to get us and secure that funding so that we can do that. So I definitely can say it was a full team collaborative effort. So thank you to all of those. Any other questions?
Congratulations on that.
Thank you. Any other questions in regards to the Pixelot system? All right, moving on to the last item, league and PIAA guidance on summer practice and fall season. Dr. Lombardi, who is the director of the PIAA, he's the head honcho. He had an interview with one of the leaders in PSBA, and they had the discussion in regards to when all of the sports can really kick off. And at this point, with information from the Department of Ed, the Department of Health, and the governor's office, everything is pointing to return to play July 1st. That would mean use of any of the facilities, any of the particular school districts in the state of Pennsylvania. It looks like July 1st, and what they're trying to do is give a date that would work for every school district in the state. Currently, there are some school districts that are in the yellow phase, some school districts in the red phase. Based on the guidance that they've received from the Department of Health, under the assumption that everybody's going to be in the green phase by July 1st. If that changes, that'll affect the entire state, just to keep it fair for everybody. But right now, we're looking at a July 1st restart. Physicals, we are unable to do physicals in-house in June. We're possibly looking at doing physicals in August. Again, it depends on the availability of the doctors of St. Luke's. PIAA rule is that any physical any student needs to have for next year has to be taken June 1st or afterwards. So I can't speak for any of our health providers, but any of those student athletes that want to get a physical, they can still get a physical done June 1st or later, which will count for next year. But any type of session that we do athletically, whether it is any football workouts, field hockey, soccer, cross country, anything that we're going to do on campus cannot start till July 1st. So at this point, I'll entertain any questions.
Thanks, Mr. Geist. Was there any indication of any changes to any of the sports due to the current situations that we're going through? Any changes to equipment needed or?
No, actually, no. Everything, unfortunately, with the cancellation of the remaining winter championships and spring, all of the spring sports, they have not made any accommodations or any changes whatsoever to any of the fall sports or any guidance at this point, other than a July 1st start date. So if we do get anything, I'll be more than happy to pass that along and get you that information.
Thank you.
I would say probably, something to think about moving forward is when we instruct our coaches, talking to them about, disinfecting equipment and things of that nature. We'll probably have to have some of those types of conversations still moving into the summer and the fall.
Right. And this isn't new when we discuss about that, Tanya. Those of you who've been around a while, we had a little outbreak a number of years ago with one of our sports teams, and it actually came down to personal hygiene. Our facilities were blamed for a MERS outbreak, and we end up finding out that there were some students that were sharing the same razor. So our coaches are fully aware of talking personal hygiene when it comes to those kind of things. And I know our partners at St. Luke's will definitely be able to help us in discussing that as well.
And I guess I haven't been to some of them, but I'm guessing water bottles and things like that are not shared anymore. Everything is either a cup or their own personal at this point.
Yeah. We have, if you ever get a chance in the stadium, we set up these little stands, are actually our athletic trainers, and then they set the big jugs on top of those wooden stands, and then we go with paper cups. We've been doing that for a while. I want to say ever since the swine flu epidemic a number of years ago, we've converted to that. And as a league, we used to have to bring our own water to basketball contests and wrestling matches. Now the home school provides water and cups for visitors and home teams. So yes, we've had a number of changes where there is no sharing of water bottles.
It's amazing what you think about after, and you go to these events and you don't pay any attention to it until something happens like this. So thank you for the update.
Sure, absolutely. Any other questions in regards?
Yeah, this is Gary. Along with some of that, July 1st seems very soon to me when we look at things, and social distancing. How are we going to handle that part of it in a locker room?
That's a great question, Gary. At this point, we haven't received any guidance, and the models that we're seeing is that the number of cases should be nil or close to zero, and if not, the state will give us that guidance as we get closer to July 1st.
Okay, yeah, because that's a big concern I would have, is because our locker rooms just do not allow for that.
That is correct.
Okay.
No, and I can say we have some of the larger locker rooms in the Colonial League, and I can tell you that some of the other schools are going to have more of an issue than we will in regards to that. So we'll have to wait for guidance from PIA or the Department of Health.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, does anybody have anything else for the extra and co-curricular agenda for this evening?
Well, this is Gary, and thank you for putting all this together. I know it's very difficult to do it this way. It's not easy, and I just want to make sure that everybody at the district who are working right now are doing things No, we of the board appreciate it very much, and hopefully everybody will stay safe and well. And that goes for us board members too.
Thank you, Gary. Okay, not hearing any additional agenda items for this evening or any new topics. Just a reminder that education policy will meet again in June. The first Monday in June, we'll have our next meeting, but the extra and co-curricular committee does not meet again for another month. We skip a month with that committee, so that committee will not meet again until August. Okay?
Sounds
All
good.
right. Thank you very
Sounds
much,
good.
everybody, for attending this evening. And just a reminder, this will be posted on YouTube, so if there's anything that you missed, you're able to go back and watch that recording. All right, everybody have a good night and stay safe.
You too. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.